Now, thus far, there has not been any serious accident, with the exception of one in Bromont. There's a man who was taking some photographs, and unfortunately, he was hit by a falling tree and died. So I want to extend my condolences to the family and friends and loved ones of that man. I'd just like to conclude by saying that the employees of Hydro-Québec are doing an extraordinary job. There are 1,000 employees that are part of different crews, and I'm very happy to see the response. And I hear citizens that say, well, maybe we should have buried the lines, but I can tell you it would cost 10 times more to do that than to have the current network with poles and lines in the air. So I think we need to be realistic, and I just want to take this opportunity to thank people from New Brunswick and Detroit who will be coming in this afternoon and tomorrow morning to give us a hand with this. So to all Quebecers, I want to say, be careful. Use the centers that are open for you if you have or friends and family that have power. And I'll turn it over now to the CEO of Hydro-Québec. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. This is quite a unique opportunity to make residents aware of the situation. Now, as the Premier has said, this is quite a special situation that occurred in the last 48 hours. Often we'll see 100-kilometer winds, but not right across Quebec in the space of a few hours. That's a unique situation, and it had an impact on our system. We saw that the system was affected in the Magdalen Islands, but now it's not only there, it's right across Quebec. And at some point, we had 990,000 customers who were affected, but now we're down below 50%. We're about 400,000 or so at this time. Now, of course, at Hydro-Québec, this is an emergency situation. That's how we're managing it, and that began yesterday morning. We're making every possible effort, deploying all our crews. People are working 24/7, and that will continue. We're aware of the fact that, of course, it's starting to get colder in Quebec, but the good news says that apart from a couple of places, it probably won't dip below zero. But we're very happy that people are working so hard, and I can tell you everyone is on this. We're talking about a huge amount of logistics, 1,000 people on the ground, in fact, even more than 1,000 now, and it's almost as much as what we do when we have to install hydro poles. Now, we have 250 poles to replace right now, and that takes between 5 and 7 hours with a crew of linemen. And there are many hydro lines that are now, and 25 cases of vegetation, if I could put it that way, trees that have fallen on top of the hydro poles and lines. So our people are trying to restore power as quickly as possible, and we asked for assistance from outside of Quebec, but provinces and other states were also affected by this storm. Now, we had the worst damage, but the fact is there were few people who were available. However, we do have some contractors from New Brunswick and 40 employees who will be coming from Detroit tonight or tomorrow morning. And just before I came up here, I heard that there are other people who are going to be joining us. So I think it is important to focus on people's safety. I know people have often said to Hydro-Québec employees that they want to help, but please be careful because they are working in very difficult conditions. Branches may be falling from trees, so I'm asking you to be very cautious and, of course, keep your children away from the hydro trucks. That's the best thing to do right now. As I said, our goal is to bring power back to the vast majority of customers by tomorrow night, and most people should have that power. There are places, however, where we know it simply won't be possible to restore power by tomorrow because there are 250 hydro poles that have to be reinstalled. And we talked about a couple of cities, but Granby, Sherbrooke, Drummondville, L'Assomption, Mauricie, La Chute, obviously the Beauce, those are places where it could take a little more time to restore power in some cases. And as the Premier said, there's close communication between Hydro-Québec, the Premier, and the municipalities so that there's assistance available for customers and residents if they need it. So that's important. And we are working tirelessly. We've deployed every possible effort. As I say, this is an emergency situation, and we're trying to return things to normal as soon as possible. But we believe that by tomorrow evening, most customers should have their power back. Now, for the question period, I would ask you to identify yourselves and your media outlet. We'll start with questions in French. And we will limit the questions to power outages. One question per journalist. Over to you.
Bonjour, Véronique Dubé de TVA.
Bonjour. TVA. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice if you can't hear me. I'd just like to know, I know that it's rather early to assess the costs of all of this. Do you have an idea of what all of this may cost? At this point, I don't have those numbers. You know that we had an ice storm last year that cost about $1 million. So every year we have a budget set aside for this type of catastrophic event, but at this point I can't tell you what the numbers are. In time, I'll be able to give you that information in the coming days.
Autre question en français? No?
Any more questions in French? We'll move to English.
Hi, Verity Stevenson from CBC.
Good morning.
Can you give us the update in English, just a summary of what's going on, starting with Mr. Legault?
Yeah. So right now we have 451,000 homes without electricity. We think that until tomorrow night, we must be able to have the vast majority of the people getting back electricity. We'll still have 3 places where it can go longer. We're talking about Richelieu sector, including around Granby, Sherbrooke, and Drummondville. Second, about Lanaudière and Laurentide. We're talking about L'Assomption, Saint-Donat, Valmorin, and La Chute. And finally, in Beauce. So Sainte-Marie, Saint-Georges. We have in total a lot of work to do there. And we're working full-time to try to get everybody back electricity. We'll put we'll make sure that we open some centers to receive the people who are not able to find somebody in their neighborhood or in their family where they can go, especially after tomorrow night. I want to make sure also that people are careful with the food after 24 hours. Make sure that there's no intoxication. Same thing with barbecue. Don't use that inside. And we're following it hour per hour. And the team of Mr. Martel is working very hard to do our best. But it's very exceptional. We are talking about wind of over 100 kilometers per hour, but in many regions. So usually it happens, but at a very defined point. It's not the case now. It's in many regions in Quebec at the same time.
You compared it to the 98 ice storm. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, we were talking at the peak yesterday about 990,000 houses without electricity. We haven't seen that since 1998. So it's a very important problem we're having right now. But solutions will be a lot faster. We're not talking about weeks, we're talking about days. And again, the vast majority of Quebecers will have electricity from now until tomorrow night.
Okay, and Mr. Martel, can you tell us what difficulties your crews are experiencing or what the situation is like for them?
Yeah, so maybe first of all, the difference with 1998 is that high voltage transmission system is not affected. So it's really the distribution system. But the challenges that we're facing right now, it's first of all, it's almost all across the province. It's not just, you know, in a small region when we can narrow it down. So we have people everywhere right now to bring the situation back. Just to give you an idea, we have 2,500 trees that are falled, you know, on wiring and on wires all over the province. 300 of them wires are underground right now, so we need to rebuild very often, and we have about 250 posts to reconstruct. So there's a lot of area where we need to reconstruct. So all our people, we're treating this as a major emergency in Hydro-Québec with a lot of intensity right now. So we have all the people on the ground, all logistic, you know, operation behind to have the post, the transformer, everything at the right place at the right time, so that we can minimize the time to get everybody back on track. But the reality is, as the Prime Minister said, the majority of the people will be up and running by tomorrow night, and we'll deal with the exception, and the exception will be probably narrowed. There'll be other exceptions, but mainly in the area that the Prime Minister mentioned.
And the exceptions, do you have any idea of how long that could go?
We know it's going to be over on Sunday. Right now, we're working on trying to better assess, you know, the situation, but we don't have enough precision yet to be able to say that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Autre question?
Merci.
Sabrina Ribon, on va revenir dans la langue de Molière. Je veux savoir, vous l'avez répondu en anglais.
Now, you answered this question in English, but you say that most people will have their power back by tomorrow evening, and others may have to wait until early next week. Would it be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Well, we don't know. Our hope is to get that done as quickly as possible. But as I said, there are some areas where we're talking about 2,500 areas where we have trees that are on the power lines, and there are also areas where we have to rebuild the network. Now, we're obviously working on those places where there are the largest number of residents, but by the end of today, we may have more information. And of course, we're working with the local authorities, and with public safety. We're saying, look, this is our plan. We're going to have finished here on this day so that people can assess their situation themselves as to whether they need to stay home or go somewhere else. Radio-Canada, Mr. Martel, perhaps you could talk about the difference between what happened in 1998 and the situation now. Well, in 1998, it was the high voltage transmission system that was affected. That was what collapsed, so it was much longer to rebuild. And that's what had to be done in 1998, 1999, in order to rebuild the entire network. So it took weeks and weeks. Now we're talking more about 1 or 2 days because our distribution system involves a smaller number of residents or customers, so we can rebuild it much more quickly. And of course, we have quite a lot of people on the ground right now doing that rebuilding work. Any other questions? Presse Canadienne. Coming back to those 3 areas that are most hard hit, do you know how many people will be without power by tomorrow night? Well, we haven't reached that point yet. Right now, we're trying to precisely assess the type of work that's needed. We're looking at how we're going to deploy our crews so that we can accelerate and get things done as quickly as possible. So tomorrow, I may be able to give you more information on the number and the time at which people should have their power back. But right now, I don't know that, but we'll be talking to the municipalities to make sure we get the information out.
So you said that these were sustained winds of 100 kilometers an hour across the province. Do you think this is climate change, and are there any lessons to be learned here or going forward?
Like you, I can see that we have more of these situations. So I guess there must be a link with climate changes. But we cannot prove that. But we see that we have more of this happening in the last few years. Yeah.
So nothing to learn from? How do we proceed in the future if this is going to happen several times a year?
Right.
One of the things that we're doing within Hydro-Québec right now, I have a team that's been working on it for almost a year now, with our people that are doing all the provision, the planning for the meteo in terms of recognizing what could happen, what are the situations we're going to see more often. I have something like 15 or 16 different teams in different aspects trying to figure out, what do we need to change, for the future. Is there anything to change? And if we have to change it, what do we have to do to make sure we're going to be able to cope with those situations more and more?
Okay.
Thank you.
Autre question? Non? Je vous remercie beaucoup.
Merci tout le monde. Bonne fin de journée.